Well, normally when the calendar flips to April, it marks the beginning of the spring real estate market, but nothing is ordinary about this year, with the chaotic trade war continuing to change weekly and a new prime minister to be elected in just a few weeks. How will the real estate market be impacted? Well, with more, we have Taylor Bennett, who is joining me from the Bennett Property Shop. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Melissa.
Okay, let's talk about this spring market and what we're seeing is and how tariffs are really impacting it.
Well, of course, it's the talk of the town right now. A lot of people are nervous about it, understandably, but we are lucky to be here in Ottawa. We don't have a lot of manufacturing-related jobs here, but of course, it will affect our new home industry quite substantially here. Of course, the supply of lumber and steel and aluminum and things like that, of course, if those go up, the cost of new homes, which is already quite expensive for builders to get into, are going to go up. And if they come too expensive, then of course, builders just aren't going to build them. And if no new products are coming onto the market, that's going to apply a sort of supply, of course, it's on there. And it's already a fairly short supply right now. So there'll be a little bit of direct impact, especially the new home side of things. The resale side, we're not seeing a lot of impacts. The stats were actually released just last night for March. The numbers are pretty good here in Ottawa. They're pretty much proving exactly how they should in March. And that's more of the resale side of things. But eventually, because of that lack of inventory, you will see an overall effect in the market.
All right, let's talk about how the federal election is also coming to play with this.
Yes, that's one thing. Is certainly that of any city in Ottawa, or any city in Canada rather, Ottawa will be the city that's affected the most of it. Of course, all of our directly and indirectly related jobs to the public sector, regardless of who gets voted into, there probably will be a little bit of a cutback in the public sector. So where people are understandably nervous about potentially losing their jobs on that end, and of course that'll add some uncertainty, delay some people's buying decisions, and you probably will have a result of people staying put where they are rather than listing their house. They might stay where they are and renovate their house to be a little bit more suitable to their needs, or they might, of course, just postpone their decision and get into the renting side of the world. So a little bit of a shake-up there, of course, but that's at the end of this month, we'll have an answer. People, their questions will be answered. They'll have a little more decision-making ability on that end.
Okay, the good news is we've really seen rates continuing to fall over the last few months. Will this impact buyers or sellers' decisions at this point?
Of course, yeah. That's any savings you can make is fantastic. So anybody that is in the house shopping area, lock in that interest rate for sure. The nice thing about locking in an interest rate, if it happens to drop again, you can drop with it. If it goes up, you're stuck with what you got guaranteed in there. So make sure you get that locked in there. And to give people an idea of how much a savings is, a 1% change in interest rate changes your buying power by about 10%. Wow. So if it goes down by 1%, then your buying power goes up by 10%. So that's a pretty substantial change. So even the 0.25% doesn't sound like a whole lot. Well, that's 2.5%, 3% in buying power that can change things. And that can open up another bedroom, a different area, different style of home on there. So it's not small peanuts or anything like that.
Okay, that's a good way to break it down for us. What do you want buyers and sellers to know right now with the market and with all this uncertainty?
Yeah, well, right now, if you're somebody who's lucky enough where your job isn't in question right now, the market's a little bit slower starting for the spring than normal, so it's a great time to kind of beat out other buyers. You will see inventory start hitting the market a little bit more. That's the typical spring market. So as a buyer, you can take advantage of that situation and don't have to compete as many buyers as you would in a normal spring market. As a seller, be very aware of how your property stands in the market. Depending on when you've last updated your home. I've met with a lot of older sellers right now, and they're like, oh yeah, my roof is brand new. I got it done in 2005. Well, it's not brand new anymore. That's about 20 years old, close into the age of expectancy. Same thing with your furnaces and things like that. So really understand what the new cost of those replacements are going to be and be prepared to make adjustments on your list price depending on that. But also figure out where your property sits in that market. Obviously, if you're listed in the Glebe versus listed in Barrhaven, the average price is very, very different. So you want to make sure where the average is and where your house sits and does it give the proper value there.
Some great advice. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Anytime, anytime.
And don't forget, you can listen to Marnie Bennett and the Real Estate and Wealth Show every Saturday at 1 p.m.